So without further ado, I'm going to announce our next panel discussion, Deciphering Web3 Security, Implications and Innovations. So for our speakers, we've got Dyma from Hacken again, Jason from Certik, Ghassan from Ruhr-University, Bochum, and Stefan from Oak Security, and moderated by Toni, Lukic from Be in Crypto. Please give them a round of applause.
Hello, everyone. It's so nice to be here. My name is Toni Lukic. I am the head of content for GenLayer, and I'm here today with these four gentlemen talking about Web3 security. You have been shortly introduced, so without further ado, I would just like to start, because time is pressing, we're late already, so let's get straight into it. So, before I get to the first question, I would just like to ask, who here knows someone who got hacked or who lost money in whatever, DeFi protocol, SEX, whatever, like central exchange, maybe FTX? So there's quite a few people, and it shows that the topic is important, which leads me to the first question, which is kind of my personal experience. So last year, I turned on my computer, and I had an old MetaMask wallet, which I used like 6 years ago with a little bit of money on their USDC. And I realized after like 10 to 15 minutes, I was like, I had some money on there, and it's just gone, you know, poof. I'm like, okay, magic internet money, it must be. But then I realized the hacker actually transferred Ethereum to my wallet to be able to pull off the USDC and then transfer the Ethereum back. So maybe, Ghassan, you could start first and explain to me what might have happened there.
Okay. I think it's a very nice and very broad question.
Yeah.
So many things can go wrong, right? Basically, this is just decentralized software, and like any other software, there could be bugs, there could be vulnerabilities, and now, like any other system, attackers can try to exploit those vulnerabilities. And software, in your case, in your example, exists on different layers. It exists on your side, your own wallet software. There is the network protocol that connects you to the exchange or to the blockchain or to the network. There is the blockchain protocol. There is the service provider, no? And there's software and layers all around. Now, typically, when you use e-banking, that's the analogy. When you use your Commerzbank or Deutsche Bank here in Germany, you could, in theory, be subject to similar attacks. No? The difference, however, is that this software that was released for software banking has been probably checked a bit more thoroughly. In the Web3 field, it seems to me that there is this sudden rush to release very quickly. And we call it the golden rush, no? Because people think they need to monetize now, they need to deploy a service now. And what it means is that they often ignore security properties or often ignore proper software checking or proper software testing at the expense of releasing things very early. And they forget 30 years of advances of what we've done in software security and what we've done in legacy systems. So probably in your side, it is a bug in your wallet, based on the current description, because he had to send the money, so he exploited some interface on your own wallet, but I mean, you never know.
Could have been, I didn't mention, I left my seed phrase on the computer. That's like...
Right, right. This could have been. But again, I mean, this is, in my view, I think Web3 does not, I mean, Web3 security does not open necessarily new opportunities for attackers.
Yeah.
I think kind of it's still software security or system security, and whatever we have learned from the last maybe 30 years, we should try to do. And maybe over time, this golden rush decreases, and then we start having much less issues. Just to give you an example, I don't want to prolong this, but we are seeing very basic bugs. I'm a professor in RUB, and one of my students wanted to start a bachelor thesis. And he wanted to study one of the most prominent blockchains in NFTs now. I'm not going to name it. In his third day, he already found bug bounties for basic integer overflows in smart contracts.
Yeah.
Integer overflows that we resolved 20 or 30 years ago. So that's the golden rush. No? That's right.
On that note, it's quite interesting. So I looked up some numbers. It's the major security breach, like private key or access compromises. Altogether, 50% of 2023's losses and a total value of 0.9 billion US dollars. Ghassan, what other security threats are there, just to categorize it? Like, what is quite common?
Right. So kind of, I think kind of key management, and this is on the user side. I mean, users have never been exposed to managing private keys before. So far, banks would do this for them. Some central entity would do this for them. Now, suddenly, we're pushing crypto on the users. They don't know how to deal with this. There is no necessary tooling support for how to hide their keys, whatever. And I would say exactly, kind of the loss of private keys or the hacks from private keys account for probably the biggest fraction of losses and these things. Nevertheless, I think there are lots of exploits that occur because the smart contracts or the decentralized app itself is vulnerable. We've seen a lot of evidence of that as well. So that's the second, in my view, most popular threat. And then sometimes even the service you're using is a complete scam, in the sense that sometimes everything is fine, the protocol looks okay, but just the service provider is untrustworthy. This is very hard to do in an open setting or a permissionless setting. But these are the two top vulnerabilities in my view, kind of user management of private wallets or private keys, completely new problem, kind of in terms of usability. We've never seen this before in security, because I now do not manage a private key for my Commerzbank, I don't. And the second problem is exactly kind of how you deploy and how you develop your decentralized applications. There are so many languages out there, Rust and JavaScript and Golang and whatever, and our developers are young, they're not very well educated, they deploy things and
Would you agree to that, Jason? Like, similar question, user-based risks and kind of business-based risks, and what do you guys focus on?
I think the professor summed up very well that about the user potential risks to the users. Today, I wanted to get into more details about, for the business, what are the risks? If for us, Certik, we're primarily serving the business side of it. So what I mean by business is that they are in the work of developing the smart contracts or chain audits, and there are just so many other potential risks to the business. Like you said, the private key leaks or the voter manipulations, they're part of what we call the governance risk. But other than that, there are mathematical risks. There's price manipulations. There are, there are just too many. Just to mention, there's on-chain, cross-chain risks there. And so it's going to be very overwhelming to the startups, even to the experienced developers. And frankly speaking, that's why we're here. We, from a Certik point of view, we served over 4,700 different projects, and we discovered more than 60,000 vulnerabilities. And we wanted to. So our advantage is that we can sum those up and try to protect. Try to build a wealth of a database so we can check against. And then apply to this, into this kind of technology into the audit. So hopefully we can catch more vulnerabilities for the startups.
Yeah. And what would be like best practices, Dyma, of mitigating those risks? Like, what do you do on a user level? Like, not saving the private key on your computer.
The worst.
And on a business level, obviously audits are a big part of that. But what do you say?
Okay, so I was preparing. So 5 tips that I do. Like, I cannot say it's the best, but it's like maybe I still wasn't hacked for 7 years. So. First, for your major funds, better use standalone hardware, not necessarily the hardware wallet. It can be a hardware, it can be even iPhone, but without anything except the software wallet or the laptop. Then for playing with crypto, like playing at DeFi, playing NFT marketplaces, always open for one operation, new wallet. And never mix them. Yeah, maybe you can have one, like fancy wallets with nice NFTs, but never sign with this wallet anything. it happens even with the best ones. The founder of Rec.News, Julian, he was also caught with the phishing attack. He blinded and signed some fake airdrop transaction, and he lost his punks. Third thing is that don't keep funds on the centralized exchange, but keep there at least something, so to fund the wallets which you create for standalone operations, and also which will like basically cut the connection between your wallets, so it will keep your privacy as well. Fourth thing is use the password managers. It will help you to avoid the biggest security mistake that a lot of people are doing, which is reusing the password. Who have ever reused his password? Okay, this is very, very bad, guys. Don't do it. And yeah, so I'm using the password manager, not one, paid version, highly recommend. And the fifth retail advice is to turn off MetaMask, anti-phishing, and other security protection tools. MetaMask is right now providing not only anti-phishing protection, but also it provides secure RPCs. Secure RPC is basically when you are signing the transaction, it goes through the node before it's written on the blockchain, and there are already like security layers on the node level, and if you're signing something bad, there is an additional chance that you will be not hacked. So yeah, in MetaMask is doing a great job in this domain.
So you're thinking of all the illegal transaction we are doing?
Why? Oh no, it's not. No, it's they have they also have this anti-phishing, and they understand some basic some basic attacks that can happen with your funds. And then on the company level, yeah, so I would say the first you should start with the private keys management. There is a standard in the industry called C4, cryptocurrency security standard, which if you read and follow, you will understand how to set up the private keys in your company. Second is obviously Web 2 and operational security is when you need to take care of your employees and to be sure that they all follow like ISO, for example, 27001 practices with the 2FAs and access to important data, because obviously most of the hacks right now of the big centralized entities is being done through the weakest points, through the admins, and this is everywhere. Third is work with the auditors before you deploy the code, because right now auditors already have certain solutions that can prevent hack from when it's happening, like it's circuit breakers. Basically, it's step back from the decentralization, but it's stepping towards like protecting the liquidity. Then, of course, bug bounty after everything you do, and I think it was something else, but maybe, yeah, I will give the floor to other speakers.
Yeah, if someone wants to add to this, otherwise.
Yeah, I think the only thing to add to that is what was hinted at in this last point, or the second last point, speak to your auditors early. I want to extend that. Think about security from the start. Even at the idea stage, you know, conceptually, there can be a lot of things already wrong with your project before you've even written a single line of code. And that's where you should really start working with security professionals and accompany that through the whole development cycle.
Let's move on to certain chains, right? So I've looked at certain reports, and it says what was fascinating to me, that the BNB chain experienced the most exploits in 2023, so rug pulls as well, with 387 hacks. So should I avoid using the BNB chain now as a user? And what does coding dApps on certain chains actually mean, like using different coding languages such as Rust or Solidity?
Okay, so in principle, there shouldn't be a difference, right? I mean, these days when we perform audits, we find the bugs in the logic, deep in the business logic. Good teams know how to use the basic frameworks and avoid the obvious foot guns. But having said that, there are of course chains with different programming models, and every programming model might have a different security model, and some are easier to use than others. So there are things that could sneak in this way. And then maybe controversially, there are some chains that just seem to attract disasters, and it's often because the type of projects and teams that are incentivized in some way to build on them. And the chain you mentioned might fall into this category. I don't know what the incentives are for people to build on that chain, but you know, that could be the case that a certain type of team is attracted.
Yeah. On that note, why is cross-chain interoperability still such a pain point in terms of security?
There's several reasons for this. I mean, the first one is added complexity, right? So if you are bridging between blockchains, you have to have a lot of extra software. And this extra software might have mistakes, bugs, vulnerabilities, and a lot of additional attack vectors. Secondly, you have to decide, am I going to use a custodial bridge or a decentralized bridge, which is sort of a light client approach. And the former obviously introduces a trusted third party, which then opens up to things like social engineering within the trusted third party and all other traditional attack vectors. And the other one, you know, just makes it very complex. So you have another sort of validator set or whatever you want to call that, that can go wrong in between the. And then as a final point, there's also, when you bridge assets from one chain to another, you usually wrap an asset. So these assets that are wrapped on another chain, they sort of spread their liquidity, their total market between different chains. And they also, they're not built into the protocol, right? So if you have ETH in Ethereum, that's sort of built in the protocol. There's certain rules, how it is created, how it is burned or whatever. And these rules don't necessarily apply once it's wrapped into another asset on a different chain.
I'm going to ask all three of you, cross-chain interoperability, is it ever going to get better with the software that's going to be that's being deployed? What would you say, going from right to left, maybe with Ghassan starting?
Right. So I mean, no, I think it's going to get better. I think kind of fundamentally, people need to. I mean, for cross-chain, you need to understand the underlying consensus or the underlying. I mean, if there is validating node, then you need to understand what protocol do they use, what is a good quorum, how to do atomicity here. And that's not something an average software developer can do. And that's not something that we generally did in legacy software. So I just think it just takes time. And it needs to be done only by experienced professionals. And this is not auditors. I mean, auditors know probably some checklist and some stuff, but this is way beyond. You need to be an expert in consensus to be able to design something that works and that doesn't break on the first fault. No? And these things take a bit of time. But I'm sure in a couple of years, we're going to see things getting a bit more mature. No?
Jason?
Interchain operability is a must for the Web3 to flourish. So from that perspective, it will stay and it will get better. The more we use it, the more we identify the vulnerabilities, the system's more stable, and then everything will get better. So.
Yeah, definitely. If we are getting worse than what we are doing here in this industry, you know, like for sure, I'm very positive, and yeah, if like really like it's reg.news, I recommend to read. It's written in sarcastic style. It's very knowledgeable, and if you read, you will understand that most of the hacks, there were like some really stupid mistakes by inexperienced developers. And our industry is becoming more mature and safe, for sure.
Now, if you look at most or much of the losses and security breaches, they come from lending, borrowing, and bridges for 2023. Obviously, in 2022, it was a different story. It was almost 3 times more than compared to centralized exchanges. So would you say, I mean, you answered it partially before, just split your funds, like use, if you want to do staking, do it on a centralized exchange and do it in the DeFi world. How would you, like, what would be the ratio and how would you deal with it?
I would like if people call me the biggest enemy of the centralized exchanges. Like, not your keys, not your crypto, this is everybody should understand. I don't trust centralized exchanges. They don't do financial audits. They they are black box, and keeping funds there, it's very, very dangerous. And I don't recommend to do that. But at the same time, yeah, we see less and less hacks of centralized exchanges comparing to 2018. However, in 2018, I don't believe there were a lot of hacks. There were exit scams when people were saying, "Oh, we hacked," but in fact nobody could check it, and they just were like disappearing, like what happened with Quadriga CX. Yeah, until centralized exchanges don't do financial audits and are fully transparent, because proof of reserve, what is being done right now is not enough. We cannot trust them, so don't keep their funds there.
One of the topics that has been interesting me was layer 2 solutions, right? Everyone has heard of them. Started with point systems, airdrop. One layer 2 is starting, kind of trying to get bigger than the other. How does layer 2 solutions, or how does a layer 2 solution look from the security perspective? Is it safer? Is it less safe? Like, what are the conditions there for the developers to make it safe?
That's a difficult question to answer. It's they're not necessarily safer or not as safe. I think right now we've seen very few exploits on layer 2s or less exploits, because nobody understands them, right? Including the bad guys. Layer 2s, some of them are just sort of side chains. They are in a sense less secure because they have a smaller validator set or have a degree of centralization, so that makes them less secure. But they use the same technology in terms of EVM or whatever on as layer 1. Then you have got very complex zero knowledge based L2s that are right now secure because we don't understand them properly, I suppose. But they are very complex, and they are using a lot of relatively new cryptography that is not as well tested as standard transaction signing, like elliptic curves and things like this. And importantly, their implementations have not been gone through the same rigorous process of years of auditing. So there might be dependency trees of crypto libraries in some of these that hide vulnerabilities. And then that's something we should be careful about. And obviously things will get better, but there's no way to say right now which is the securest L2, I think.
So all these, yeah, please.
Yeah, I just want to try to explain why, in my opinion, a lot of experts' opinion, layer 2s are adding centralization and more risks. So imagine like the beauty of blockchain is the sequence of the transactions, that like there is no double spends, and there is a random order how the validators are calculating the blocks. And what is happening with the layer 2 and why people are calling it centralized is that the sequencer of the transactions that are how they want to pack into one Ethereum block like a huge number of information is being decided by like basically few node operators who run this L2. And this is a big this is adding a new layer for manipulations and security risks. So yeah, sequencer is the problem of L2 because in current L2s they are all centralized.
And additionally to what you just said, it could as well be that developers, or even, as you said, the bad guys don't even understand this technology. This very secure ZK proof could actually be not so secure as we think.
Yeah, I mean that's sort of obscure security by unintentional obscurity. It's so big and so hard to understand that we don't, and we haven't found the vulnerabilities yet. But you know what was just said about the trade-off between centralization and security, or decentralization and security. That's a basic problem we've had since the beginning of blockchains. The blockchain trilemma: scalability, decentralization, and security. And obviously layer 2s solve this by reducing one or the other, because it can't be
Yeah.
solved otherwise.
I mean, I think I agree with many things that has been said, but personally, I think L2 is there because we failed to do a proper L1. Honestly, I think kind of, if we did a good job with L1, we will not be speaking about. No?
So you think if we would have one really good layer 1 blockchain, we wouldn't even need all those layer 2s?
And unfortunately, now people say there are some people. I mean, in this field, obviously there are lots of experts. No, so you never know what happens. But there are some people that tell you that we need to go to L3.
Yeah.
And I don't know. So I mean, I really am one of the people that still think there is value in having an L1, proper L1. It gives you consensus. This is something that L2 does not do. If you do your job very well, you know how to do it well. I don't think we need L2. No? And some L2s, I mean, I don't want to name because my job is not to advertise, are formally verified. So you come up with a formal prover, you formally verify the code, you formally verify technologies. Some of them are actually, I can tell you they're secure because scientifically they are. No? Probably they are not the commercial ones that or industrial ones that exist now, but there are some startups that do something that's formally verifiable. And I would always then encourage people, if you really, really have to use L2, I don't know why, but if you want to, then try to go for something that's formally verified. It's the best advice I can give.
But you won't tell any names?
No, it's not my job.
No advertisement. Has any of you guys got feedback from your auditors on layer 2s? I don't know if you've had like huge, like well-known or less well-known layer 2s in your companies audited, and what was the feedback from your auditors? Like, was it a bunch of work? Was it way more? Like, what was the perception within your companies? Sorry.
As I said, our auditors they don't they are decentralization maxis usually, and they are very skeptical with the sequencers because it's basically not what we wanted to build 10 years ago.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I mean, we've worked with a few layer 2s, and the feedback from our auditors is that it's very difficult to understand the whole system, right?
Mm.
Very often when you do an audit, you look at a part or just the sort of the layer 2 chain implementation, the validator, the consensus, or whatever they call it, or the sequencer, you audit the sequencer. But you don't look at the crypto libraries, you don't look at the whole dependency tree, so that it's very difficult to get a full overview. And I just wanted to touch on this last point regarding formally verified L2s. That might be the case, but it's very difficult to formally verify everything correctly. It's very easy to formally verify the wrong thing, and it's very difficult to verify the whole cryptography that is behind it. And it's very difficult to formally verify a real world implementation of these mathematical concepts sometimes. So it's, I would love to hear, maybe we can talk about this afterwards if you don't want to name L2s. I would love to look into a formally verified L2 and read the proof and see.
I would love to hear that discussion as well, but as we only have 4 minutes 50 left, I think we should do it afterwards. On a side note, just if any one of you wants to answer it, the problem we've talked about with the L2s was also centralization in terms of the sequencer is mostly centralized. What if we would have a decentralized sequencer, say on EigenLayer or whatever? If anyone wants to answer it.
Then probably it's going to be expensive and slow.
Yeah.
Then use the sequencer on L1. That's cheating.
So we're getting back to have a better label.
I think it means consensus, or
The order of the transactions.
yeah,
Yeah.
so an ordering. Yeah, so it's consensus for me, and then just use L1 again.
Yeah. Just make a good L1 and forget about the L2s.
Make a good L1.
Okay, we'll make it short and crisp now as we're running out of time. I kindly ask you, we're starting from Dyma, going to the right side, to just answer yes or no, and then you can explain your answer as well. Does using a VPN help? For security reasons for you?
Security, no. Security, no.
No. You can explain a few words if you want as well.
The VPN is to hide your IP, which allows you to enter some restricted websites or to hide your presence in the internet. It doesn't help you to be secure.
Okay, common myth number 2, use a hardware wallet, yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much a no-brainer, right? Like whoever recommends you to use, just use a hardware wallet instead of a.
If you can, just use it.
Yeah. Third question, Ghassan, browser extensions that help against malicious smart contracts, or like there's a few around now. I don't want to name any, but like flagging, either just flagging the smart contract, or just like you know, you have to press an extra button to just send the transaction through. What do you think helps or helps not?
I think if it's done well, it should help. I mean, again, you need to trust that thing. No, it's another layer in the chain of trust. And if you trust it, and if it does a good job, then why not?
Yeah.
Not a holy grail.
Yeah, no. But it's an additional layer on top which you can use to kind of signal.
It's an additional layer of, if done well, trust and whatever. If not done well, of exploits and exposure.
Yeah.
So it's a two-sided coin.
Maybe let's get, as we're running out of time, to like some fundamental questions. We're still quite early with blockchain adoption, obviously. Or does someone of you disagree?
Very early.
Do you think all of these hacks kind of almost, it's a new technology, right? So do you think all of these hacks have to happen also for auditors to open their eyes and for developers to just this national evolution, you know, of getting to where we want to be in the future? Anyone, maybe Jason? If you,
yeah, I definitely agree. Just like any Web 2 or even Web 1 systems, it evolves. And we have the ethical hackers to help the industry to identify vulnerabilities. And only those vulnerabilities will help to improve the total design of it. So everybody is learning on the job, and especially for the auditors. Yeah.
And I'm going to ask all four of you, maybe starting with Stefan. What do you think with this? Yeah, it's almost like a war on crypto, right? Politics making a buzz about security. You have the Chainalysis report, which then says, okay, that's not actually true if you just compare fiat illegal transactions. First of all, what is illegal? Like, right, that's in the Chainalysis report. But if you look at fiat and then compare it to crypto, what do you think of politics? Is it like a certain agenda against crypto? And I'm going to pass the question on to all four of you.
It's not necessarily an agenda against crypto. A lot of it is lack of knowledge. Decisions makers sometimes don't understand this the way we do, and obviously the general public doesn't understand some of this. But I mean, some of it, you know, is true. I mean, at the beginning, a lot of transactions were linked to questionable things, and but the thing is, they were not caught, or they were not. No action was taken at the time due to lack of understanding. I mean, Bitcoin is not a privacy coin, right? It's not. There is no privacy on these blockchains. It's actually much easier to trace money flows on the blockchain than it is in the traditional fiat finance system.
Yeah.
It's just that this was not understood at the beginning, and it's still not understood by everyone.
Okay, we're going to skip the road to Dyma. I think you wanted to say something.
Yeah, decentralized permissionless peer-to-peer network is a threat to government. It's a threat to their ability to control and to lock like people's and companies' finance. So that's why they will keep fighting to control. That's why they will keep trying to issue CBDCs, and that's why they will keep fighting with or like owning and controlling USDT and other centralized stablecoin issuers.
Ghassan, you look a bit skeptical.
I like to be always neutral. I like to keep two sides of the story. So I think governments are typically interested in taxing, no, to get money. I think control and not. This depends on the government probably. And I think there is a genuine interest from some governments here in Europe to also protect their users, to be honest. And I mean, sometimes you need somebody to tell you it's a scam. So I think, and when it's a scam, it's a good thing that somebody tells you. So kind of the same way they regulate the markets, they regulate, I don't know, how we buy products from the supermarket. I think some sort of regulations here is good, no? So it's somewhere a trade-off, no? Somewhere in between. I tend to agree completely with Stefan that, and I think it's a good point. Many people think of cryptocurrencies or this blockchains as a way to evade the system,
Yeah.
which is perfectly good, because for me it's the best honeypot ever for catching criminals. No? I mean, criminals must leave a trace that they cannot delete later on, ever. And that's very good for governments, and governments actually are enjoying this.
Okay, I have to cut you off here. Jason, last sentence, please.
Thank you. We think 2024 is the year of compliance. And for the reason that only if we can allow ourselves or blockchain in this Web3 to be compliant to the government regulations, we can attract more users or bigger TVLs into the industry and making this industry to truly flourish and maybe take over the old system. So.
Okay, that's it. Thank you. Give it up for these 4 amazing panelists. Thank you.